Steven from Just Got Played, and I'm counting down my top 100 games of all time. So there were 2 videos before this one, and I'll put links to them down below, where I talked about numbers 100 through 76 and 75 to 51. But in this video, we're starting the top 50, so we're doing 50 through 26. And there's a lot of different games in here as far as complexity and weight goes, but there's one game that not that long ago was in my top 10, so fallen a little bit down the list, but still top 50, so pretty exciting. All right, let's get to the list. Just sneaking into the top 50 in the number 50 slot is Whistle Mountain for 2 to 4 players, 60 to 90 minutes from Bezier Games, designed by Luke Laurie, and Scott Caputo did Whistle Stop. So this is set in the Whistle Stop universe, but really has nothing to do with the game Whistle Stop. And it's a worker placement game, and I think that's what's most interesting about this game, actually. So in this game, you're going to have player powers. Everybody's going to have some ability, and then over time, you're going to get these other sort of activation things. You get them up here that separate you from the other players. And you have these 3 workers. You have, I think it's called a dreadnought, which is 3 spaces long. You can see one here, 3 spaces long. A balloon, which is just 1 space, and then I don't know, an airship or Zeppelin or something that's 2 spaces. And you're going to place that around the board or on the board. And so it's traditional worker placement in that these spaces on the outside of the board get blocked when you put your piece there. So until you recall your pieces, it's taking up that space. But I think what's really interesting here is you're building scaffolding here, and then you're putting these machines out on the scaffolding, and then you can you can dock your airships against the scaffolding, and you can activate these machines, or actually, so the scaffolding has resources on it too that you can collect by docking next to them. And I think that's what's really cool about this game, because the board state is so dynamic. Over time, the water will rise, covering up machines, so it changes, what's available regularly, and workers get knocked down into the water, and there's negative points unless you rescue them or whatever. So it's a really interesting take on worker placement, and that's why it's my number 50, Whistle Mountain. All right, at number 49, I have Kohaku. I think Kohaku might mean goldfish in Japanese. So again, 1 to 4 player game, plays pretty quickly, 30 to 45 minutes. And this is from Denny Devine, who designed and illustrated this. I got a copy, a successful Kickstarter, with nice acrylic tiles. They're about to publish, it's coming out soon, a second edition that is just cardboard tiles, probably cheaper. And this is what it looks like. So there's this central board that you're going to draft from. So you have to draft a fish and a feature. And when you draft, these move out to the side and new ones come out. And then you just have to place them in your own private, sort of koi garden here. So, and each thing scores differently. So this, for instance, might want to have red fish around it. Fish, have a couple of different colors, and then they have things around them that you can score extra points with. So they might have coins, they might have dragonflies, they might have little baby fish. And depending on where you put them, it sort of, is how many points you're going to get for that placement. So for instance, putting this fish here, is going to score it for both of these blue flowers or lilies or whatever these are called nearby. So, each piece sort of describes how it's scored. It's really easy to play. It's not particularly cutthroat. I mean, somebody might draft something that you wanted, but usually that's just because they need it, not because they were trying to hate draft you. So it's just, a relaxing, fun sort of filler game. And that is why it is my number 49, Kohaku. At 48, I have Villagers. I like most things about Villagers, although I don't like the box, these weird boxes that this company is using for all of their games, Sinister Fish. So this goes up to 5 players, 30 to 60 minutes. And what you're doing in Villagers is you are building a village. So there's going to be a road out here of travelers, and you're going to draft travelers into your village, and they're going to do different things for you. So some allow you to build more things into your village. Some allow you to collect more cards during that phase. It's interesting that when you go to play, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit on some of these. So when you go to play one of these, they might require you to have some built on top of something else. So for instance, to play the beekeeper, you have to have a carpenter. And when I say you have to have a carpenter, what I mean is if you have a carpenter, you don't pay the cost. If there isn't a carpenter, you can pay the bank, unless another player has a carpenter, in which case you have to pay that player. And so that's interesting. There's this requirement when you're putting the card out, but then there's also some of them just have a requirement. So this says that the log rafter is in a chain where there has to be a lumberjack and then a log rafter. So some of them, like the lumberjack, is a basic type. You put it down, and then you can build log rafters on top of it. Let's go down here and see if there's some others. Okay, so the founder, for instance, so there's the founders, and the poulterer can go on top of the founders. If you look at this one, the jeweler, there has to have been a miner, which is the basic type, which you can get for free at any time. And then you have to have drafted and put a seeker on top of it, and then a spelunker, and then a jeweler to score, the maximum points. And there are, different abilities these things can do. This one's going to give you points for each padlock symbol, and there's a couple of scoring rounds in the game. And so it's got this sort of engine building feel, and you're just building up your village. And so I find it pretty fun in trying to solve that puzzle, like what I'm going to do with the cards that I have that have been dealt out to me or that I've had the opportunity to take. So anyway, that is why my number 48 is Villagers. At 47, I have The Resistance, and this is a little surprising. This is the game that was in my top 10 for a long time. I really do like The Resistance. It was my first social deduction game. And you can play this with a lot of players, up to 10 players, and it is really quick to play. And what it is you're either, a spy or a resistance member? I can't remember the two sides, right? There's two sides, the red and the blue, and they're competing with each other. And each round, there's some requirement. There's a mission, and you have to put, say, 3 people on this mission or 4 people on this mission. So this is for a 6-player game. There are 2 spies and then 4 players from the other group. And so on this 4th mission, or on this 5th mission where you have to send 4 players, it only takes 1 spy on a mission to sort of fail the mission. A spy doesn't have to fail the mission if they don't want to, but that's what you're doing, right? Someone is the leader. They're deciding from the people at the table which people are going to go on the mission, and then each person on that mission can secretly submits a card about whether that mission is going to succeed or fail. And it is simply a social deduction game, right? Because there's the deduction component. Okay, somebody on this mission failed it, so one of these people has to be a spy, and then in another mission, somebody failed it, so one of these people has to be a spy, and so you can make deduction, things like that. But then there's also social deduction, obviously, because you're trying to figure out when people were maybe not doing what you were expecting them to do, etc. Why has this game fallen so down for me? Maybe it's because we don't play it very much anymore. I think in my group, social deduction is not as popular as it once was. I also feel like maybe my group doesn't like playing social deduction with me as much anymore. I'm so good at playing the spy that I'm just always accused of being the spy, regardless of the situation these days. So anyway, it has fallen down, but it's still in my top 50, The Resistance. If you want to give somebody the gateway experience into social deduction, this is the ticket, because it is just purely distilled, simple social deduction. So at number 46, I have Chinatown. So talking about games that distilled experience, Chinatown is a distilled trading and negotiation game for 3 to 5 players, plays in about 60 minutes. So in Chinatown, you're trying to build these shops. Each round, you're going to draw some cards, and you're not going to keep all of the cards, but you're going to look around and say, maybe I want to keep the 84 or the 85. Maybe I want to keep the 69 or the 70. You'll keep a few, and then you'll discard the others. And then you'll also draw from the bag these shop tiles. And what you need is a combination of those things. You need the areas on the board so that you can put your shop tiles down, and you're trying to build large contiguous sections of these shops because you're going to collect rent at the end of each round. So it is a pure trading and negotiation game because, I may draw the 75 card and then keep it because I know you need it. Not that it does any good for me, and you have something that I want. So I'm looking at that and saying, well, all right, I'm going to take this with the express purpose of trading with you. And one of the things I like about this game is there's sort of an urgency in trading because every round you collect that income, and there's so many rounds per game. And if you hold on to an asset, right, you know I want that asset. I've tried to trade with you. And maybe they're just, we can't work something out. But if you hold on to that asset, it actually devalues over time. It's less valuable to me, once another scoring income collection has passed because I didn't collect the income for that, and I'm only going to collect it so many times. So I like that urgency about the trading in the game. You can't just sit on something and be like, well, I'm just going to wait until you make a better offer because it's worth so many victory points at the end of the game. No, it's going to lose value over time. So anyway, simple game to teach, learn how to play. I mean, in 4 or 5 minutes, you can explain this game, and it's just a fun distilled trading negotiation experience. Check it out. Number 46, Chinatown. At number 45, I have Cosmic Colonies from Scott Alms. This is another one that more recent one that I had backed on Kickstarter. 1 to 5 players, 30 to 45 minutes. It is a polyomino style game. You're collecting these polyominoes and you're placing them on this asteroid. So you'll put one down, and then all the others have to connect to that one. And you're trying to cover up parts of this asteroid, essentially mining it, I guess, to score points at the end of the game. And then there's also like a set collection thing. One of each type of building gives you some points. You'll have a private goal that says some specific type of building gives you extra points at the end of the game. So it's got that polyomino set collection thing going on. But to me, what's really interesting about this game is the card play. So every round you're going to play a couple of these cards, and every one of these cards has sort of 3 important things on it. There's the order in which it's going to go in the round. So the lower numbers go first, so that's better. Whatever ability it gives you, and then there's the carrying capacity, which is sort of how many resources you can collect with that character. So you want to go early in the round because there's a limited amount of these buildings out on the board, and also a limited amount of the resources which you need resources to collect these buildings. So you want to go early to get those things and make sure somebody doesn't, grab all of a specific type of resource or building or whatever before you get a chance to. But then on the flip side, usually the higher numbers, which go later, also have cooler abilities. So you're trying to balance that when you're choosing. And then the other thing is when you play these cards, those cards are going to pass to your opponent to play or potentially play the next round. So if you have a really good card, you may actually want to sit on it for a while instead of choosing to play it, because that's denying other people at the table the opportunity to play that cool card. I mean, sure, you're denying yourself as well, but maybe that's okay, right? So I think that interesting card play of when do I want to play a lower number to get stuff? When do I want to play a higher number for its ability? When do I want to hold on to a card instead of playing it? That is what really, separates this from a lot of other games. And so anyway, that's why it's my number 45, Cosmic Colonies. At number 44, I have Between Two Cities. So this is one of those games that we play at a high player count. We actually play it at 8 players because of some extra components I have from like an early Kickstarter version. And it plays really quickly because it's a drafting but simultaneous play game. And if you look at it, this is actually a picture of the expansion, so the Capitals expansion. Normally, you will build a 4x4 city. Well, actually, you'll build two of them. You're going to build a city on the left with the player on your left, and you're going to build a city on the right with the player on your right. So you're going to draft two tiles on your turn, and you're going to decide which one goes in which city. But then your opponents / teammates on each side of you are going to do the same thing. So each city is going to grow by 2 tiles each turn. So in capitals, you've got this mat. You can't play in these areas, and these are connected. You do a 5x5. But otherwise, the game is conceptually very similar. Different buildings have different scoring systems. So, for instance, the taverns is a set collection where you want to get the different types of taverns, and commercial buildings, you just want to have a lot of them. The more you have, the better, and you score points if they're next to taverns. And factories, you actually want to have the most of all the other cities at the table, because each individual factory is worth more if you have more than other people. And parks score you points for being connected. And so there's a lot of different ways to score, but again, it's that interesting drafting system, and because I'm going to draft something, and then I'm going to pass the stack of tiles to draft from to the person who's next to me, who's also going to be drafting a tile to put in the same city that we're putting tiles in, right? So you can sort of be like, oh, I'm going to draft a park, so he can draft a park and put it in here. But then the person next to you might draft that park and play it in a city 2 away from you that doesn't really matter to you, other than that you're competing against it, right? You never know exactly what the people next to you are going to do, and you can't just ignore one of your cities, because your final score at the end of the game is the value of your lowest scoring city. So an interesting dynamic going on there. Again, simultaneous play, large number of players. Is one of the reasons why we break this one out pretty frequently. My number 44, Between Two Cities. Next at number 43, we have Champions of Midgard. So it's for 2 to 4 players. I have the Dark Mountains expansion, which brings it up to 5. But Champions of Midgard is an interesting mix of worker placement and dice combat. So you've got this board, and you're a Viking leader, so you've got some individual ability going on, and you're getting these dice, which are your soldiers, and you have these meeples, which the meeples you place out on these different locations to activate stuff. There's draugrs up here you can fight. There's things down here you can get a ship and go fight. You can go out here to get resources. And, one of the things that I like about this game is the troll. So there's a space up here where you go and you fight the troll. And, you get glory, which I think is like the victory points essentially in the game. You get glory for fighting the troll. But if nobody fights the troll, or if the troll survives anyway, then you all get, I don't know, it's like shame or something that gets spread among all of you. Which is not good. So, but again, it's interesting because you've got, the worker placement where you're blocking people out of spaces each round. You're jockeying maybe to get to, some boat or the space to fight some specific monster. But then the combat is, there's a random event between you and the monster when you sail. So you don't know exactly what's going to happen there. So you need to be prepared for that. And then, of course, you have dice combat. So you might lose. I like to play with the Valhalla expansion, which gives you, a benefit even when you lose. So your dice go to Valhalla when they die, which can give you some other benefits. So I would recommend always playing with this expansion if you have access to it. Anyway, that's my number 43, Champions of Midgard. At number 42, I have another Luke Laurie game. So this is the Manhattan Project Energy Empire. So 1 to 5 players, 60 to 120 minutes. Again, sort of a medium weight game. And it's another worker placement game. So you're taking your workers and you're putting them out on these spaces. And this is one of the ones where you can't block people out of spaces. But if people want to use the space that you're in, it's more expensive. So you can see here, there was one worker here, and then there's a worker with an energy that had to be spent underneath them, and then somebody else wanted to go there as a worker with 2 energy underneath them. And I like this that about this game. And I just like this sort of engine that you build here. You've got to get power, and you've got to decide which kind of power you're going to get. Are you going to get, solar or wind power or nuclear power, which can have polluting effects, or, just like petroleum, and it can pollute your area, and you can just accept that you're going to lose those points, or you can clean it up. So, you've got resources to collect, and you've got cards to build, to activate in your area. And so it has a lot going on, but I think it's a pretty cool mix of a bunch of different things. Pac-Man is not included. The Pac-Man Ghost is not included with the game. So anyway, that was my number 42, the Manhattan Project Energy Empire. At number 41, I have Space Base. So Space Base plays 2 to 5 players. I have the command station, which I think takes this up to 6, maybe 7. I don't remember right now. It says 60 minutes. We've had games go quicker than that before. The game does go pretty quickly because there's stuff going on everybody's turn. So what you do is you have your own area here, and this goes from 1 to 12, and you have a ship docked in each slot. But as you buy new ships to go on these different slots, you sort of send your ships out, and so they get tucked behind this board. So they get turned and tucked behind this board. So you see right now, if me or my opponent were to roll and say, okay, so say we rolled a 5 and a 4, I could use this on my turn to activate my 5 ship and get 1 money, and my 4 ship and get 2 money. Or I can activate my 9 ship, which is off the picture here, which might do something else for me. And then everybody else also gets to choose how they want to use the dice, but they get the things that are up here rather than the things that are sort of docked in these spots. They get the red things instead of the blue things. And so you can collect money or victory points. These rocket symbols are the victory points. And it is just a race to get to a certain number of victory points, unless you get the you win card and manage to satisfy it and then immediately win the game. There are some complicated things like cards like this that need to be charged before you can use them. And some of the symbology can be a little bit confusing with linked things and other stuff to new players. But once you figure out the game, it's really simple. And this is in the vein, and that's in the vein of games like Machikoro or whatever, like rolling dice, and, everybody gets something. So anyway, this is my favorite of that style of game, Space Base, my number 41. My number 40 is poker. So, whether it belongs on a list like this is questionable because there is no, real game you go by that's poker necessarily. You buy a deck of cards and something to wager with, and there you go. You've got poker. There is a picture here that I think it does a good job of illustrating how I like to play poker the most. I actually host a poker tournament for charity every December, and we play No Limit Texas Hold'em. So the way Texas Hold'em works is everybody is dealt 2 cards. The player right after the dealer has to put in half the blind, and then the next player has to put in the full amount of the blind. So there's action on every hand, and then everybody is dealt these 2 cards. So you have 2 cards that are only for you, and so you have some information. And then there's a round of betting, and then there's what's called the flop. 3 community cards come up on the table, and everybody shares those. So at this point now, the 2 cards that are privately in your hand and the 3 that are on the table make up your 5-card poker hand. So you have now that you've got a hand, you have some idea of how things are going to go. And then there's another round of betting. And then there's another card that comes up called the turn. So now there's 4 cards on the table and 2 in your hand, and you're going to make the best hand you can out of 5 cards. So you don't necessarily have to use both from your hand. You could use one of these and the 4 on the table. And then finally, and there's another round of betting. And then finally the river comes, which is the last card. And there's another round of betting. So, it's fun. Knowing maybe some probabilities, the likelihood that somebody has something. So social deduction, is that person bluffing with the betting they're doing, etc. Maybe I wouldn't even think of this normally to be on a list like this, except like I said, I host that charity poker tournament every year, and it's always a whole lot of fun. So we enjoy playing poker. My number 40. At 39, I have Tokaido. So Tokaido, 2 to 5 players, 45 minutes, game by Antoine Bauza. And this is another one of those games where you're trying to decide how far ahead you're going to jump from everybody on your turn. So whoever's in the back gets to decide, well, where am I going to go next? You can't go past these inns. But, where do I want to go? Do I want to go donate money to a temple? Do I want to go shopping to buy items? Do I want to go get to a certain area so I can paint a specific part of a panoramic, painting I'm trying to do? And there's points associated with all those things. So this is a game where I disagree with everybody. Not everybody, but I disagree with a lot of people in that a lot of people say that this is a Zen-like game, because the art is very beautiful and maybe the gameplay is simple. They sort of act like this is a relaxing game, but this is a cutthroat game, right? Like, I'm going to get to the end before you so I can get that meal so you can't get it. I'm going to jump ahead to get that panorama to complete the set to get the bonus. I don't understand the people who talk about this as a sort of Zen experience game. This is a cutthroat game to me, but I really like it, and so that is my 39 Tokaido. So at 38, I have Sushi Go Party. So I was always a fan of Sushi Go. I think Sushi Go Party is even better. Plays 2 to 8 players, 20 minutes. It's a drafting game. I talked earlier about how this is my sort of gateway game to introducing somebody to drafting if they've never seen that before. And what I like about Sushi Go Party versus Sushi Go is that it has these customizable menus. So every game can be slightly different. So nigiri are always available, but then you have all these other things. So this is a sort of they called it right here a cutthroat combo, right? You've got eels, where if somebody passes you one eel at the end, you're going to get negative points. But if you can get 2 or more of them, they get pretty good points. And tamaki, most and fewest. And, the desserts, there's always one dessert, and the dessert gives you scoring at game end versus each round. So there's always that question of, should I go ahead and get some dessert now, preparing for the end of the game versus, getting points for this round. And, I like that, again, that it's customizable, that you can have a lot of different ways to play the game. And it's just classic, simple, distilled drafting. My number 38, Sushi Go Party. So at 37, I have Hanabi. So this is a cooperative game. Oh, Antoine Bauza again. I don't, I said before, not a lot of cooperative games on the list, but we do, my group and myself really do like Hanabi. So Hanabi is you're trying to cooperatively make the best fireworks display. So, 2 to 5 players, 25 minutes playing time. It's a card game, although you can get a version like this, which I actually prefer with the tiles. And the thing that's really interesting about Hanabi is the hidden information. So this is sort of your view when you're playing the game. And I do recommend getting some kind of card holder, if you can. Otherwise, you just have to hold your cards up. But you see what is in everybody else's hand, but you can't see your own cards. And so on your turn, what can you do? Well, you're trying to build this fireworks display, and it has to go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each color stack, has to build up that way. So if you were to play the 5 yellow before the 4 yellow, that sort of lights a fuse. And if there are 3 of those, I think it is, then it blows up and you've lost the game. So you want to make sure that you don't play a card until it's time to play that card. So that's one of the things you can do on your turn, play a card. Another thing you can do is you can give somebody a clue, but you have to give them specific information. You could tell them about a color or about a number. So I could point at the cards here and tell this person, these cards are yellow. And I would have to point at this one and this one. Or I could say, these cards are 3s. And I could point at this one, this one, this one. I could also say, this card is a 4 because it's only 4. And I could point at that one, right? So that's a clue that I can give. There are a limited amount of clues that you can give. So you've got to manage that as part of the game. There are more cards than you need. So I think there are 3 ones and then 2 of the 2, 3, 4, and then only 1 5. So you got to be careful that the 5s don't get discarded. But for instance, if you've put the 1 yellow down, now somebody else can discard a 1 yellow, and that gives you another clue to give to someone. And, this is a game that it can be fun to just sort of play casually. There are some people who play it almost with like a specific language, like bidding and bridge, I guess, where they've inside the rules of the game developed their same sort of language that tells somebody other than what they're actually saying. I don't like to play the game like that, but it is. It's a fun cooperative experience. Personally, I think if you get too serious about it, then people can be why'd you do that? What are you doing? And that's that's not a great experience necessarily for a new player. But I do like that this sort of fights the alpha gamer problem in two ways. One, it's limited communication. I mean, you just can't tell people what to do because you can't tell people what cards are out there or discuss the cards, for one. And then two, you don't have all the information, so you can't possibly make the quote unquote best decision, right? Because you don't know. So anyway, Hanabi, a cooperative game that I really enjoy, and it is my number 37. Next up is High Rise at number 36. So High Rise is from Gil Hova and his Formal Ferret Games. 1 to 4 players, 100 to 150 minutes, in this medium weight category. In High Rise, you've got this little piece called a mogul or something, and you're moving it around the board, and you're using it to collect resources and collect special abilities, and ultimately you're trying to build these tall buildings. So again, this has that sort of time track mechanism that I really seem to enjoy, where you can decide, how far along do I want to move? And it's a good decision, right? You've got to decide, do I want to be the first to jump across these piers because you get extra resources when you jump across those piers, and so you get first choice when you do that. Do you want to jump ahead to a specific space to make sure that you're, landing in a specific neighborhood or getting a specific ability from one of these cards? And along with that, there's this area control aspect of the game. So, you're trying to build the largest building in each section for scoring purposes, and you want to have the largest building at the end of the round, or for scoring as well, like the largest building in the whole city. And you're racing to complete specific styles of floor plans to get bonus points, and there's this mechanism as well with corruption. So, for instance, if you land in this area and you go to build a building, it needs to be built in this section of town, but you can spend a corruption to decide to, build it somewhere else. And in fact, the city center doesn't have any space associated with it. You have to spend corruption to build in the middle of the town here, in the middle of the city here. So that corruption mechanism where, it allows you to sort of break the rules of the game and take this negative corruption aspect, I think, is a nice addition to the game. I also just like the table presence of this. Originally there were some 3D plastic models. In fact, you could have gotten those additionally from a Kickstarter. Yes, I got this game from Kickstarter. I should count how many of these games I backed on Kickstarter. But, these cheaper cardboard ones, I actually like those better. So I'm really happy with the production of the game. I'm really happy with the flow of the game and the decisions. It is a little long. It is a little hard to teach to a certain extent. The game flows pretty easily, but there are some edge cases, and it can intimidate other players. And I think, that is what has kept it from going even higher on my list, is I just don't get to play it as often as I would like to. But still, it's number 36 on my list, High Rise. So at 35, I have Bohnanza. So I think a lot of times when people think of Uwe Rosenberg, they don't think necessarily of the bean trading game first off the top of their head. But this plays a lot of people, 2 to 7 players, 45 minutes, and it is just a card game. You have a bunch of beans in your hand, and you can plant some of those beans on your turn, and you're trying to get these sets of beans to score them. And you can trade with other people. You turn up some bean cards on your turn, and you trade those away to other people, or you plant them in one of your fields, and you have a limited number of fields. And so there's a couple of interesting things going on there. The first is that you cannot reorder the cards in your hand. So if you want to get to a card that's later in your hand, you have to play the ones before. You either have to plant them or you have to trade them away. You could even trade some card that is in the back of your hand for that exact same card from somebody else, so that you can get it now and plant it, So you get interesting gameplay like that. But also the cards that come up on the table, if you don't trade those away or give those away, you have to plant them yourself. So you may have to clear out a field before you're ready to, scoring the field before you've ready to, get the maximum points or whatever. You may have to clear out that field so that you can plant one of those cards that came up. So you may actually find yourself giving somebody a card to take another card just because you don't want it. But then again, you might want that card out of your hand anyway because it's blocking some other card that's next in order in your hand. Like, it is just conceptually so different from a lot of trading games and a lot of card games. And, I think that's what makes this game so much fun, because it's just so different. And I, of course, just enjoy trading games anyway. So that's why Bohnanza is number 35 on my list. So at number 34, I have The Crew Mission Deep Sea. You can see here it re-implements The Crew, The Quest for Planet 9, which is also an excellent game. I briefly had both, but I decided to just keep Mission Deep Sea. So 2 to 5 players, 20 minutes, and again, this is a cooperative game. And the interesting thing about this is it's a cooperative trick-taking game, which is the kind of thing that you would, just doesn't make any sense. Like, what do you mean trick-taking and cooperative? Because, in every other game, trick-taking is a competitive thing. Well, so you have missions, right? So you see here, I will win more tricks than anyone else. So this player, and everybody knows that, right? Like, this player needs to win more tricks than anybody else. And this player, I will win the 2 of submarines and no other submarine card. So how are you going to play with the cards that have been dealt so that everybody is able to achieve their goals? And you can't just, show people what's in your hand or whatever. There's an ability to give clues, hint information to other players, which is not shown here. But, so that limited communication, that limited information, it turns it into this giant puzzle you're all trying to collaboratively solve under the guise of a trick-taking game. And it's just a crazy concept and sort of sounds silly, but it totally works and is a really fun game. I tried to use this in sort of a gateway aspect. So people I knew that knew how to play trick-taking games, I thought, well, they know how to play bridge and hearts and spades and oh hell and some other games, so I'm going to show them The Crew. This is going to blow their mind. Yeah, it didn't really work. A couple of times I've tried that, so I don't know how well this is a good transition into the hobby, maybe from people who played that kind of game. But still, it is an excellent game, and my number 34, The Crew Mission Deep Sea. At 33, we have Port Royal. So 2 to 5 players, 20 to 50 minutes. It's an Alexander Pfister game. He's made some much more complicated games, but this one is not complicated. It's simple, and again, it's just a card game. And what I like about it is the push your luck aspect. So on your turn, you're going to just start turning over cards from the deck, and there will be different things in the deck. There'll be people that you could acquire that give you special abilities, and then there'll be pirate ships. And the pirate ships, you can take those for coins eventually. But what you do is you just keep turning over cards until you decide to stop. And if you keep sort of pushing your luck, turning over cards, and 2 pirate ships of the same color come up, then you've lost, right? Your round is over. All the cards are discarded. But if you stop before that, you can get some benefit. So if you stop when I think 0 to 3 different colors of pirate ships are out, you can take one of the cards. So, I could just take this pirate ship and I would get the 2 money from it. Or maybe I could buy this for, 4 gold, I think it is, if I already had 4 gold. And then everybody else around the table also has the opportunity to, take a ship or buy a thing, but they have to pay you for the privilege of doing that. Now, so I mentioned 0 to 3 colors being out. If 4 colors of ships are out, then you get to take 2 cards, and I think 5 colors. You get to take 3 cards. I think I'm right on those numbers, and there are just 5 different colors of ships. So, there is this definite incentive to just get those extra pirate ships out there. And there are things you can do, like get people who have swords that let you scare off ships, so that you don't, have that collision that ends your turn. And, ultimately it's just a race to get the most victory points. But there's a lot of interesting things going on here. But really, it's the push your luck aspect that really makes me like this game a lot. And so that is my number 33, Port Royal. At 32, I have Jamaica. So Jamaica is 2 to 6 players, 30 to 60 minutes, and it's a fairly light game, and it is a racing game. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to race around the island of Jamaica. So you start over here in Port Royal, and when somebody gets all the way around, the game ends. That person doesn't necessarily win, so maybe it's not entirely a racing game, because there are a lot of different ways you get points, including the position of your ship and gold that you have and treasures that you might have, or etc. But it has this interesting idea that whoever is the active player rolls dice and decides one die goes for the day action and one die goes for the night action, and then you have these cards that decide what you're going to do during the day or the night. So this person decided, well, I'm going to load 5 gold during the day, and then I'm going to move forward 6 during the night. So it depends on which card you play, and then you have a limited set of your total cards to choose from. It has this interesting aspect about how you can fill up your different cargo holds, and your cargo holds can have coins, which I mentioned are points. You can have food, which you need to land in specific spaces. You also need coins to land in some spaces. If you have the expansion, you can at the crew, you can land at these ports and get special abilities. And then you have cannons, and cannons are useful because if you land on the same space with another player, you actually fight and duel, and then you have to go back if you lose. Or if you land on a space and you can't pay for it, you have to go back. And so a lot of interesting things like that going on. It's called shortage when you can't afford to be at a space. And the new version of the game, the shortage rules are different. They're just less complicated, but maybe also not as strategic. I haven't played with the new version. I have the older version, and I like it. Don't see any reason to upgrade. But we've had a lot of fun playing this game. My wife has played this as a 2-player game with one of our friends, with the ghost ship also included, and she said that was really good. So, you might want to check that out if you play 2-player games. Apparently, this one's pretty good 2-player. So, my number 32, Jamaica. At 31, I have Zooloretto. So 2 to 5 players, 45 minutes, and you're filling up a zoo with animals. So what a great theme! Who doesn't like that theme? And also, I like the way this game works. The I split you choose mechanism sort of that it has going on here. So on your turn, there's a few things you can do. There's ways that you can spend money to manipulate stuff, and I won't get into all that. But the main things that you do on your turn is, you reach in the bag, you grab something out of the bag, and you put it on one of these trucks, and each truck holds 3 pieces. Or you take one of these trucks, and then you take everything that's on the truck from 1 to 3 things, and you put it in your zoo or your barn or whatever, and then you're out for the round until everybody else has also gotten a truck for that round. And it's interesting because there might be a truck that is very obviously good for you. It's got a couple of things on there that would be great for you because you're collecting. You're trying to collect the same tokens of the same species for these different fields, and there's buildings that might help you in coins. And somebody may just stick something on there that is bad for you, and it ends up in your barn, and it can be negative points at the end of the game. Or sometimes you'll take something and because you like some of the stuff, and there's a thing on there you don't want, but you're going to stick it in your barn, and somebody else wants it, so hopefully they're going to buy it from you, and you'll get a coin for doing that. So it's a fun game. The I split you choose, this idea of, should I just take a truck? Should I pull something else out of the bag. What truck should I put that on? What species should I try to concentrate on so that I'm not overly competing with somebody? A lot of good crunchy decisions. And I also just have to give a shout out to a BGG user who made this version, which I have a very nice print and play version of gifted to me from someone else on BGG. My kids like to play Zooloretto, and it is due at least in part to this, because we have all these different Pokemon to put in our zoo instead of just regular animals. Well, plus it has Ditto, right? Ditto is awesome. All right. So anyway, that is my number 31, Zooloretto. At number 30, I have Cable Car, or San Francisco Cable Car, or Metro. It goes under a lot of different names. I have the version pictured here, San Francisco Cable Car. And the game is really simple. On your turn, you draw a tile and you put it down somewhere. And you have these trains. And when the track for that train is completed, you score it. So there was a train here. These tiles were put down, and so it goes 1, 2, 3 tiles. I think you double count, yeah. And then it's ended, and so this got 3 points, and it's removed, and now you know that one's out of play. This one hasn't finished yet. It's still on the board. It's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wow, this is a good one because now it's headed this way. If this one can get connected into the middle instead of off to the edge, they'll score double points for that. So again, really simple. You can't turn the tiles when you get them. The art has to all sort of stay in the same orientation. But you can put it anywhere you want on the board. And I like to actually play, the version that I have came with the stock expansion or something that it's called, where you can take your turn to, instead of having a specific color, like I'm the blue player, I'm the green player, you can sort of trade in to try to get stock certificates in these different companies, and they're sort of secret. So, like, do I get some share of the points from the yellow company or the blue company, and now I'm not working on blue just entirely by my own. Somebody else cares about that. So anyway, I think that's a nice addition to the game, and I like to play that way. And without that, this probably would be lower on my list, but when I can play that way, it is my number 30, Cable Car. At 29, I have Winner's Circle. So Winner's Circle, again, 2 to 6 players, that kind of range that I really like, 45 to 60 minutes. And this is a Kinesia game, and it's a really good implementation of a dice game. So I have the dice tree version of the game, which has these nice painted horse miniatures and some coins. And then there's this wooden die. And that's what you do is you have these bidding tokens, and you sort of secretly bid on which horses you think are going to do better in the race. And we like to bid. We like to use the version with the zeros here. Sometimes we even include these blanks. So you basically have 1 or 2 bluffing bids out here. So people see that you put your marker on the 4 horse, but they don't really know if you're backing that horse or not. So what you do on your turn is you roll the die, and 3 of the sides are a horse head, and then there's like a saddle and, some other symbols. And each horse moves a different distance depending on the symbol that it's activated with. So on your turn, you roll the die and you look and you see, wow, the horse head isn't very good for my horse, so I don't want to move this horse that I'm really trying to move. But wow, it's not good for this horse either, and I'm not betting on that horse at all. I'm going to use the horse head and move that other horse. So because every horse has to move once before another horse can move again, right? So you can activate some horse you've not even bet on with a number that's bad for it, right? Just to sort of sabotage that horse. But if you roll something like the saddle symbol and your horse moves 11 on the saddle, like, you're definitely you don't want to move before somebody else sabotages your horse. So it's got this wagering aspect. For second, third place, you get points. It's played over 3 races, and we just have a lot of fun. Like, no, use the die on this horse. No, not that one. Wait, I thought you were on this horse with me. That was your bluff, or just your one, and you don't care that much about it. And sometimes you're the only person on a horse and you just keep rolling the right thing and that horse is doing well anyway. It's, so just a lot of crazy fun based on the die roll. And that's why my number 29 is Winner's Circle. 28, I have Alien Frontiers. Alien Frontiers is one of those early Kickstarter success board games. I did not back this one on Kickstarter. So, just I had to confess, right, that not all my games come from Kickstarter. I got this one second hand. Actually, I think it was gifted to me. This is 2 to 4 players, 90 minutes. You can play with more players, although it's not recommended by the designer anyway. We played with more and thought it was fine. I also like to play with the Factions expansion, which isn't here in this picture, but it gives you a unique ability, a unique place for you to dock your dice, because your dice are your workers. I think they're called ships in the game. But on your turn, you pull your dice back and you roll them, and then you use them to do stuff, right? So depending on each space, here you need 3 that are the same. Here, I think you need a 6. Here, depending on the number that you put, it lets you acquire certain things. The number of solar sort of tokens you get is based on the number of die you put here. Same with the lunar mine. And you're trying to get colonies out on the board, so you can use the colonist hub to sort of move up here, or if you can't, get lucky and use the colony constructor. And then when you get down on the planet, you've got an area control thing going on. If you have a majority in an area, you get a special ability, and ultimately you're just trying to get the most points, and you get points for having colonies, and there are other things that give you points, like there's some tech cards and things that can give you points. And it's it's a really cutthroat game because you're blocking spaces for other people to use. So, if you like sort of mean worker placement style games, this is a good one. I would say check this one out. Alien Frontiers, my number 28. At 27, I have Railways of the World. So again, 2 to 6 players, 120 minutes, and this medium weight area. And I'll confess, I don't normally like pick up and deliver games. But this game has got a route building aspect to it that I really enjoy. I like connecting these different cities and figuring out the sort of puzzle of how am I going to get these connected and level up my train and make these deliveries. And so it definitely is a pick up and deliver game, but I feel like it's not. It's about all those other things for me. And one of the things that I like about this game is, so you're limited in the number of actions that you can do, but you're also limited by, do I have enough money to do these things? And this game allows you to just say, well, you know what? I'm a little short of the money I need to do something. So I'm just going to take a bond, I think it's called, for a loan from the bank to get that extra money so I can just do that thing this turn. And those are, negative points that you can never get rid of. Right. But it's sometimes it's just worth it because you've got to get that track laid before somebody else gets in there. You've got to upgrade your engine before somebody else takes that cube and delivers it. And, there is a lot of pressure in the game as far as like, I need to go first, or I need to go before that person. And so some people, do fancy styles of auctions every round for the first player position. I think the rules normally call for first player position to be auctioned and then just go clockwise from that player. But that can really, if somebody constantly is trying to go first, then the players sitting to the right and left of them, are sort of artificially harmed and helped by that other person's actions. So there are other systems where people auction off basically every position. And that's generally the way I like to play because it's not that much more complicated. It seems like the game is more balanced that way. But it is a big sprawling game, and they make tons of maps for this. I have the version that comes with the Eastern U.S. and Mexico, which depending on the number of players you're playing with, Mexico is for 2 to 3 players, and the Eastern U.S. map is for more than that, 4, 5, or 6 players. But there's the Western U.S. and there's just there's railways through time and just all kinds of things. So if you like this game, lots of different opportunities to play in different parts of the world. Anyway, my number 27, Railways of the World. And last for this list, at number 26, a game that, if you were to just ask me, is just one in your top 25, I think I would say, yeah, I think it is. Because I do like party games. I like simple party games. This is a game I can take out and play with any group of people. Any group can learn this in just a minute and play it. And every time I've brought this out, everybody has had fun and wanted to keep playing and playing it. And so here it is, though, at my number 26, just missing the top 25, is Just One. So it says 3 to 7 players. I mean, you could play more than that if you proxied some components. 20 minutes. Well, this is one of those games that you just sort of play until you don't feel like playing it anymore. I mean, it has a scoring system and it is cooperative, but we basically ignore the scoring system when we play. And when I teach the game, I really like to lean into the just one part of it, right? So whoever's turn it is to sort of guess what is the clue, I guess, the thing that is trying to be guessed. The thing you're trying to guess is just one word, right? And you're going to get just one guess to guess just one word, and everybody else is going to write down just one clue to clue you in to what that thing is. And that would be really simple if it weren't for the one quirk that everybody writes down a clue, and then before you look at it, they all show each other what their clues are. And if they wrote down the same thing or things that are in the same family, essentially, they have to put those clues face down, and now you don't get them, right? So what sometimes there'll be 5 people and you'll turn around and there'll be one clue left standing, right? Because the other 4, they paired off and conflicted on something. But anyway, sometimes just 3 words is, clues is enough for you to guess what the thing is. So again, an excellent party game. Probably the best party game, I would say, for ease of teaching and ease of play and just general the fact that everybody can play this. Fantastic game. Check it out. My number 26, Just One. All right, so there you have it. The first half of my top 50 games of all time, number 50 through 26. So stay tuned for my top 25. Thanks, everybody. We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please leave a comment or hit the like button. It really does help us out. If you have suggestions for future videos, let us know in the comments as well, and then subscribe to see what we come up with next.